John, in your book, You Inc., you say that anyone can succeed in real estate. Even in this environment, do you think someone can succeed?
I think so, Kevin. I think if you take the right approach, these are the best times of all, because a lot of your competitors drop off. A lot of people start fearing the economy and start focusing on things that are sort of, I think, irrelevant to them. Like, what did the Dow Jones do last night? What's happening? What's the headline in the newspapers? So I think these are actually better times than ever, albeit we're probably at the end of the GFC, to be honest, but I think right through the GFC, we've had an outstanding opportunity for people to grow their businesses, probably better than any other time in history. Mindset's
pretty important, isn't it? Do you think blocking out a lot of those external influences that really we can do nothing about anyway is a good way to go?
Yeah, mindsets is the key thing, positive attitude. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales agent or a support person, your number one thing is to stay positive and just keep your mindset on the things that you can control. So my view is I actually block out all media that has a negative potential impact on me. I focus on things where I can control the input. I get a lot of information from Twitter, for example, because I subscribe to people. So my view is you've got to be very careful about what you let into your head. You watch the 6 o'clock news tonight, 30 stories, 29 negative stories. So you've got to ask yourself, is that the right way to condition your mind at the end of the day before you go to sleep? I think there are better ways.
John, what's your definition of success?
I think success it's got to be measured. I think most people today, Kevin, are better at it in a balanced fashion. So I think it's what makes you feel happy and delighted and do you feel grows you? And if you're clear about that, and having a successful business, I mean, I'm all for success and the prosperity and the financial freedom it can bring people. I think that's real and that's important. It's certainly not the most important. I think, what's critical is health, what's critical is relationships, what's critical is a sense of contribution and connection. What's critical is making a difference. Now, a business can help you do all of those things, but you've got to be clear about what are the things that you really want to deliver in your life.
I often wonder, I walk into an office where someone's doing extremely well and someone sitting beside them, same opportunities, is really struggling. Why is that?
Well, I think, as we said before, it comes down to the individual and the individual's mindset. There's only two things that separate people, I think, two major things. One is their skill and one is their attitude. We often call it skill and will. So 0 to 10, what's your skill level? 0 to 10, what's your attitude level? You'll find the same person, the fact that they're sitting in the same brand, often working the same community with the same opportunities, and yet someone's bringing in $1 million in revenue for the business and someone's bringing in 100,000. If you were to interview them, the 100,000 person will start with excuses. Well, it's GFC, Kevin, haven't you heard about it? This is really tough, and I've got a small community, and I've just started in real estate. They'll have this proliferation of excuses as to why they're not. If you can get a chance to speak to the $1 million earner, but it's probably going to be hard because they're going to be focused and undistracted. But they're going to tell you, well, like a great opportunity, and I love helping people, and I work hard, and I've got a great organisation, I've got a great plan, I've got a great team, and I've developed my skills, and I'm ongoing learning, and every single day I'm filling my mind with positive. They're going to have a much better plan. So number one is get rid of your excuses. If you're not performing at a level that you know you could be or you should be, just drop the excuses and then start doing what the successful people are doing.
John, what suggestions would you have for someone who's in a slump? How can they get out of that?
Well, first thing, is remove negative influences. That can be people, that can be information, that can be input, that can be a whole range of things. So second thing is appreciate what we have. I mean, here we are living in the lucky country in what I think are fabulous times with more technology and more tools and the internet and things available to us than ever before to help us grow our business, grow ourselves. I mean, there used to be a time where you had to be wealthy to be well educated. Now you've just got to have an internet connection. And you can get onto YouTube and you get on the internet and you find any answer and interviews with famous people. So be appreciative, inspire yourself. I read quotes every day. I have apps on my phone that have little daily quotes. So it's do things that make you feel good, because I often wake up, not often, but occasionally I'll wake up and I've had a bad day yesterday and maybe my subconscious was working on overnight and I'm feeling a bit flat in the morning, and then I'll go onto Twitter and there'll be there'll be a quote there that talks about, the importance of, moving through challenges and getting to the other side and making you a better person. And that resets it in my mind, or shifts my paradigm back to where it should be. So I think you've got to inspire yourself. And the last one is not only remove negative people from your life, but include positive people. And sometimes you can do it face to face, occasionally if you know some people around you. Sometimes you can do it through things like your programs, audio programs, video programs, that are bringing you in touch with people. A lot of the people that I guess have in some ways mentored me, I've never met. but I've watched them. Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs example. I've watched video after video, I've read book after book, even though I never had the pleasure of meeting him. His philosophies were accessible to me. And I think that's really important. The philosophy and the teachings of great people are accessible to all of us.
John, I've heard you talk about an inbuilt success thermostat. What does that really mean? What does it mean to you?
So in essence, the success thermostat for me is you can achieve anything you want if you set your mind to it and you believe it. The problem is most people set something which is eminently achievable and it's not a great stretch because it's easy and because they, without stretching their belief system too much, they say, well, I can do 2 sales a month, no problem. Well, the problem is what if you could do 12 sales a month, but you never gave yourself the opportunity? So my question is, are you stretching yourself enough? Are you expecting enough? Because you will probably deliver what you set your subconscious as an expectation, not much more. So I'm all for, now, I'm not saying stretch it to a point where it's unbelievable for you. Can I run the 100 metres in 9 seconds? No, I can't. I don't believe that's a possibility. Could I be the world's best real estate salesperson or office? Yeah, I think I can. So, you've got to actually be able to connect with that. The problem is a lot of people have really they've down-traded there and they've shortchanged themselves so much on their goals. It's like turn up and you can hit it. That's not exciting for me. No wonder people burn out.
John, someone watching this right now, what steps can they take to improve their outcomes? What can they do right now?
Well, I think reality check of where you are and own your current reality. So don't say you're only doing 2 sales a month because the GFC. Just say you're only doing 2 sales a month because that's actually what you're doing in terms of your strategy, your energy, your skill level. So if you want to go to that next level, what are you going to do? Are you going to go and buy yourself a new suit, a new outfit? Are you going to get a business coach? Are you going to start joining the gym? Are you going to read a book a day? Are you going to start yoga or meditation? Are you going to start shadowing a great agent? What are the things? So build yourself a plan that works for you. Maybe you get to the office a half hour earlier and work a half hour later. Anything, most people out there, it's not, Kevin, the matter of can you do it, it's knowing what to do and then just doing it. Because all that stuff, I've just mentioned those things, if you started doing those tomorrow, you'd triple your sales in the next 12 months if you did them every day. But it's a matter of starting them.
Hello and welcome to another auction update as we look at the activities over the last week. And in just a moment, Kevin Brogan from CoreLogic will tell us that clearance rates are rising in Sydney and Melbourne. Auction numbers have fallen across the country. We're also going to take you inside 6 top sales around Australia in the show. Stay with us. Back in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks, so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
And joining me once again, Kevin Brogan, or well, not once again, for the first time. Kevin, great to see you, my friend. How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for inviting me on.
That's a pleasure. And just by way of introduction, Kevin Brogan trained as a valuer. He did that in Bath. That's a beautiful spot in Bath too. We spent about a week there several years ago, Kevin. It's just absolutely... We'll talk about that later. Bath, of course, in the UK. Before he migrated to Adelaide in 1998... I think that might have been about the time we were there too. He spent 9 years at the Adelaide City Council. He was there as the city valuer. He then joined CoreLogic in 2008, where he is currently the residential market commentator and now the co-host of our 2 auction update shows on Property TV every week. Delightful spot, Bath, mate. I've got to tell you, we went there for one day and ended up staying for a full week.
Oh, well, I went there to do a traineeship and ended up there for 9 years. It was absolutely beautiful spot.
So much history. I've got to say, I didn't like the water though. I didn't like the water that you in the baths. You know how they have the commercial water, or
yes,
mineral
absolutely.
water, or whatever.
In the pump rooms they serve it, and it tastes like what you might get in a dentist's.
It tastes like dishwater to me.
Yeah. No, not very pleasant.
But I sort of rallied around the fact that it was going to make me healthier. So who knows? Maybe it did. Maybe it
absolutely.
did.
The entire city was built on that premise.
Yeah, indeed. And of course, Kevin Brogan is going to be with us, as I said at the top of the show, every week, and we'll be looking at the two shows. Monday, which is the one you're watching right now, which is where we have a look at what happened over the weekend predominantly. And then on Friday, we really just give you a wrap-up on the entire week and get the final figures. Okay, having said that, Kevin, let's bring up the preliminary figures from the weekend. Holding pretty well, just over 61%.
Yes, so the combined capital city rate at 61% is the highest that we've had for 12 months or so. And that's really reflecting the confidence that people have been talking about in the market post the general election.
Yeah, Sydney and Melbourne both well over 60%, Sydney up at 66.1. Do you think that'll drop by the end of the week much, Kevin, is your experience?
Yeah, look, when we get the results in, we tend to get the results that are successful. I mean, every sales agent wants to, wants bragging rights on successful sales, so they come in first. As the week goes on, we do obviously get successes that have been negotiated after a property is passed in, but we get a slightly higher proportion of sales that have been passed in. It shouldn't trend down too much. Our collection rate is almost 70%, which is within 24 hours. Bear in mind of the auction taking place.
Not big numbers out of Perth, but a fairly good success rate there at 55%.
Absolutely. I mean, the question when you get down that low in numbers is how statistically significant it is. You tend to get a fair bit of volatility. I was in Perth recently, and they were talking again about green shoots, but we've been talking about those for a little while. The market there's been fairly soft since the end of the mining investment boom, 2015.
And for the first time this week too, we're going to take you inside the top sales in Perth and Canberra. We'll include them both. So anything else you want to draw from those, mate? Canberra 43.9%, Brisbane 35.7%.
So Canberra's, I think, quite interesting. For a long time, it was actually running slightly ahead of Sydney. But when we talk about these sort of trends on a combined capital city basis, it's always good to delve in and see what's happening in each of the individual markets, because Canberra is actually sort of bucking that trend at the moment. It's only 2 weeks since the election, so I don't think there's anything tremendously significant. But Canberra has been returning better results than that for a little while.
Okay, well, let's go to Sydney now. We'll have a look at the Sydney sub-regions. You do a commentary on that every week. What are your conclusions about the regions in Sydney?
So the regions in Sydney actually show a fair bit of variation when you compare them to the sub-regions in Melbourne. What you do tend to see is that the areas which have got the higher value properties, mainly owner-occupier markets, have actually continued to do quite well through the market softening. So the eastern suburbs, for example, has continued to return results in the mid-60s, even when the clearance rates for Sydney had dropped quite significantly at the beginning of this year and the end of last. If we have a look at somewhere like Ryde, I think one thing that's really interesting about Ryde is it's particularly strong. I think it's in the top 3 again this week of the sub-regions. But it's actually one of the regions which has shown the largest fall in values over the recent market softening. There's a few theories around that. One of them that I think holds the most credence is the fact there's sort of vendor realism there. You'll be aware when properties are put on the market, the vendor may not have regard to market conditions and play sort of catch up by discounting that price. I think in Ryde, the fact that the fall was higher meant that realism probably kicked in a bit earlier. Reserves were set at a level that was achievable.
Yeah, that's a great message there too. Some good results out of North Sydney and Hornsby, 73%. Even City and Inner South holding up nicely. Not a lot of auctions, but 75.6%. A pretty good result.
Look, it certainly is. Now, the City and Inner South, I think, is dominated by much more than the other regions by units. And we certainly saw, affordability issues in Sydney being a driver. And as the market softened, we perhaps saw units doing a little bit better than houses just because they were at a slightly lower price point.
Okay, well, let's have a look at the top Sydney sale. This was first time on the market in 67 years. 4 Balmoral Avenue in Mossman, just over 5 million, in fact, well over 5 million, 5,510,000. LJ Hooker selling this one, Michael Coombs and Adrian Bridges, so my apologies, Adrian. 5 bedroom, 3 bathroom, 2 car on 608 square metres. This was the deceased estate. Spectacular water views here too. Tell me a little bit about Mossman, Kevin.
So Mossman is one of those suburbs which has good clearance rates. It is highly sought after. Supply is relatively limited. The median house price at the moment is around 4 million. So this house is something special even for Mossman. It's elevated quite high with commanding views down over Balmoral Beach. And I think we see Mossman even through periods of market softening, just retaining that sort of level of market interest, just because it is so tightly held. Yeah,
no, wonderful property there, sold by L.J. Hooker. Let's go to Melbourne. We'll look at the sub-regions there. You made the point earlier, Kevin, about the differences between Melbourne and Sydney, and we can see a really good demonstration here. A lot of the success rates are fairly uniform, aren't they? What I would call uniform. I know they vary, but they hold up pretty well.
They're within a much tighter band, whereas in Sydney sometimes you see Parramatta at 40% and Ryde at 75%. Certainly in Melbourne, the range of difference is much smaller. Quite often the inner east, as this week is particularly strong. I mentioned volatility earlier. The Mornington Peninsula has returned some interesting results recently. Last week it was probably one of the highest auction clearance rates. This week it's dropped back a fair way. Of course, Mornington Peninsula itself contains a significant variation of housing stock, from Portsea and Sorrento, which are absolutely top of the market, to somewhere like Frankston, which is perhaps more a satellite of Melbourne.
And would I be correct in saying too, Mornington Peninsula is probably a little bit more affordable? We don't see as many auctions there. We're only looking at 18.
Oh, absolutely. But in Melbourne, it's interesting compared to your home city of Brisbane. There's much more of a culture of take almost anything to auction. So that you literally have hundreds and hundreds of auctions. So it will have that variety. Auction is a method of sale that is still used in some of those higher value areas towards the tip of the peninsula. But it would also be used for much lower price stock in around Frankston as well.
Top sale out of Melbourne was 60 Brinsley Road at Camberwell, 3 million. Fletcher's, our good friend Tim Heavyside selling this one. 5 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 2 car on 745 square metres. Tim describes this as timeless poise and contemporary glamour. You can see that when you get inside too. A lot of traditional features have been held on this one. A lovely Federation-style LED light open fireplaces. Kevin, tell me about Camberwell.
Well, again, Camberwell, as you might expect, because we're discussing the highest sales, is a very desirable location. The median price there is sitting around 2 million. So once again, this is a property that's found success at auction, which is above that median price. I think we've seen 85 sales in Camberwell over the last year, so it's a reasonably active market. And this particular house, as you described, was really very well presented and obviously found success at auction for that reason.
I'm going to take you to some of the other capitals. Now, firstly, we'll go to Brisbane, a suburb that I haven't heard of, and I hope you can tell me a little bit about Ransom. 76 Molly Road, 1,650,000. McGrath's selling this one, David White. A big home, 7 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, 5 car accommodation. One of the few, I believe, remaining acreage suburbs. This is on 2.5 acres. Very private area, even a private tree-lined run-in. What do you know about Ransom?
Well, Ransom is very well located, I suppose. It's only 18 or 20 kilometres away from Brisbane, out to the west. We don't have a median price for Ransom because they've only been 3 or 4 sales over the last year, and it has a population of 400. As you said, probably quite rare in terms of having acreage or a decent land holding that close into the city. But yes, it is a suburb. I'm glad you said you hadn't ever heard of it. It was certainly new to me, but it's actually fairly close into the city. So somebody's got themselves some good accommodation and good land within striking distance of Brisbane.
Yeah, out on the west side of Brisbane, it is literally only about 30 minutes from there into the CBD, which is pretty good travelling. But we see that around Australia, don't we, where when the city starts to grow out, they do have acreage type properties, and they're very hard to track in value. Most make it hard for the agents because there aren't enough sales to go from.
Oh, look, absolutely. As you know, I live in the Adelaide Hills on a couple of acres, less than 30 minutes from the city. And everybody's house is different. It's I think the drivers are different as well. We've got a town of cafe society which draws some people in. I went for views.
Very good. I'd be interested in, it's a conversation for another day, but how a valuer goes about valuing his or her own property when it comes time to sell it. I mean, we've just been through the sale process. We secured a sale last weekend and under the hammer at auction. Thank you. And like every other seller, I had a higher expectation of price. And I'm just wondering, as I said, subject for another day. I'd love to talk to you about it, Kevin, but how does a valuer go about keeping his feet on the ground? I want to take you to the...
Ask his wife, I think, is the answer.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, exactly. I want to take you to the top Adelaide sale now and get Kevin's take on this too. Dulwich, 13 Ascot Avenue, 1.29 million. Owens Cassidy Real Estate, Angela and Michael Stenterford. 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 3-car, 589 square metres. This is a 1913 villa, sandstone exterior. You can see from the photos here, quite a delightful property. Tell me about Dulwich. Is it Dulwich or Dulwich?
Dulwich is,
Dulwich,
yes.
Yeah.
We normally shorten it to Dulwich. Now, Dulwich has a median price of 1.25 million, so this is pretty much on the money. It is literally walking distance to the city centre of Adelaide. Yeah. Again, it's really quite a tightly held area. We only had 12 sales there in the last year. And I noticed that whilst we're talking about markets softening over the last year or so, in Adelaide, our markets remained fairly steady. In Adelaide, this house was marketed with a guide price of 1.1 million, and it sold for 1.29. So
I'd be happy owners.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it's that combination. It's a really well presented property. It's in a good location, and it's in a suburb which is pretty highly sought after.
Mm. Very good. Okay, we're going to come back in just a moment and take you to the top Canberra and top Perth sales. Some interesting conversation there. Notice that the property in Canberra sold during the week, not at auction on the weekend. Come back in just a moment and we'll tell you about those sales as well.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
Country 66 Scrivener Street in O'Connor, 1,220,000. This one sold on the 29th of May last week. McGrath's selling it. Marie Van Arkel, 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom. Renovated in 2012, I understand, and architect designed. Featured as a bit of a model with solar housing. This has a bit of solar influence to it with double glazing and something I've never heard of before, but I think it's built into the slab, which is hydronic heating. Kevin, do you know anything about hydronic heating?
I I think you're right. I think it is a water-based heating. I mean, it's very common in the UK through hot water radiators, but I think you're right. This one is actually done through the slab. Yes. Again, this house has got something about it, the architectural design and the way it's been presented as well makes it very desirable. Once again, we're getting a common theme here, looking at the top sales. O'Connor, again, is one of those suburbs which is highly sought after. Interestingly enough, we don't have a median house price for O'Connor. The feature of the ACT tenure system is that all of these houses are on Crown leasehold. So
no freehold title?
No, that's right. So the Crown leasehold structure is well, in terms of its being the total land stock is unique to ACT. Certainly there are Crown leaseholds around the country, but ACT is the only territory that has that for every property.
From a valuer's point of view, does that make it more difficult to value a property in Canberra?
There are circumstances where it can be, but I mean the basic premise of valuation is to compare properties directly with other properties that are similar. So to the extent that the properties are on the same tenure in the ACT, it's not an insurmountable problem.
Okay, go to the top Perth sale now, and this one is in Wembley Downs, 24 Slalom Drive, 1,020,000. Pede Real Estate, Sam and Adam Menino, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car, 807 square metres. The same owner since 1986, very established gardens, high ceilings. Probably, in fairness, I don't mean this as a criticism, but maybe a little bit dated, looking at some of the photos. And I would have to say great bones to this one, really ready for a makeover, Kevin.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. I mean, in Wembley Downs, the median house price is $1 million, so this one's pretty much sort of bang on. Yeah. The interesting thing, as you've already mentioned with the Perth market, is that there really aren't that many auctions over there, and I think that's always been the case. But having a market that has been softening and continues to soften in 2019. Since 2015, it really does mean that auctions are fairly rare. And even though this week we've got a 50-odd% clearance rate, I mean, success at auction is actually also really quite rare. Mm-hmm.
Very good, Kevin. It's great talking to you. We've got the auction preview coming up on Friday, so stand by for that. Kevin Brogan will be back from CoreLogic to give us the numbers for the weekend ahead. And in future weeks, we might try and get an impression from you too as to where we're headed, how you feel the market's going. Kevin, but welcome to the show. Well done, my friend. You've done a great job. Show number
Thank
one,
you very
and
much,
many
Kevin.
more to come. So
looking forward to speaking to you again soon.
Look forward to it. Kevin Brogan joins me again on Friday, and we'll have a look at the auctions ahead of us. I'm Kevin Turner. Look forward to seeing you then.
Evening, Clara. Home, please.
David, what's on your mind?
I was just thinking of a different time is all. It was a time when I used to sit up there, you know. Driving wasn't just about being taken from place to place, but going somewhere. Feeling something along the way.
Please, David, you should relax.
I'm afraid that's just the problem.
David, where are you going? David?